Hey guys, it's 5 o'clock in the morning, and actually it's almost 5:10, and I am absolutely exhausted, but I felt like I have to make a video because I just, um, I'm thinking about a lot of things right now Occupy, with all the Occupy protests going on and everything, um, and just the media blackout. And I feel like I want to say something because there are a lot of things that people don't seem to be getting. Number one of the things I want to say is media blackout is not new. They did that in the 60s and the 70s and whatnot. You know, it's something that just it happens every time. It seems like it's just going to happen every time, or the media blocks it out. But what you have to remember is that the 60s and the 70s, we get films, we get art, we get history books now talking about those protests and talking about what they were really about now, um, regardless of the fact that the media didn't talk about it then. So it doesn't matter if the media blacked it out then, and it doesn't matter if they block it out now, because it's going to end up in the history books one way or another. Um, the idea, I think what's really atrocious to me is the concept that I hear whenever I turn on the news, which is why I really don't turn on the news very much at all anymore, and rarely ever have in the past either, pretty much for the same reason, is that I'm not hearing people who are like me. I'm not listening to people who are like me on there. I'm listening to people who are not like me, either in that they have very steady employment, very good jobs, and they don't have anything to worry about. And so how could they possibly um, understand what I'm going through? Or because they know what I'm going through and they don't care because, like I said, they have uh, they have steady employment. They don't have to worry about very much. Um, Except for maybe their own emotional state, which I can understand if that becomes an issue. It's an issue for everybody, regardless of your place in life and in the economy. But I mean, there's a difference between somebody who just doesn't get it in the media and somebody who gets it and decides to act like they don't get it, or act like what they get is something ridiculous, like someone who would say that, these people are all just people who don't want jobs, like Bill O'Reilly said, or, these people are all hippies, these people are all this, these people are all that. It's all a party, it's all a game to them. You know, those people are not saying that for any other reason than their own prosperity. They're saying that because they've been told to say that. That isn't something that they, out of the process of their imagination, came up with. That's something that their writers came up with. So, yeah. I mean, take that as you freaking will. So, I really don't like these people. I don't like to turn on the news. I don't like to get my information from the news because, you know, I might look like an idiot when I ask somebody later what the hell is going on, but I'd rather look like an idiot then than to look like an idiot constantly hanging on every word that they have to say, because really that's just completely idiotic. I mean, you can't trust probably greater than half the shit you hear on the news, and if you think you can, then you have been led to believe so, and you're false. It's not true. I mean, you're extremely naive if you believe that. I'm not being, paranoid here. It's just the fucking truth. It's just the way it is. You want to talk about the term "the way it is"? That's the way it is. That's the fucking way it is. And I'm pointing at my TV. So this Occupy thing, Occupy Wall Street, Occupy all these different cities and stuff, it is getting to them. You can see it in the fact that the politicians are trying to divert attention away from it, because why would they bother diverting attention away from it if they weren't frightened by it? Um, and it has already gone on long enough that there is no way it will not be talked about in poli-sci classes, in fucking history books for years to come. So, you know, it's a very real thing. It's a very real issue. And I think it all stems, I think there are a lot of people who think they get it and don't get it. And I think what I'm going to use as an example is something I got from, and yes, I know my hair's a mess. I don't fucking care. It's 5 in the morning. Um, as an example, what I'm going to use for an example is something I got from my Sociology 101 class, which should say something about how simplistic it is, and, definitely not to be taken entirely literally, in that um, in this example it foregoes certain other measures that are necessary to add into the figuration of everything. But basically the concept is you're working at McDonald's, you're making about $8 an hour. I know that's like a dream come true. If you're working at McDonald's and making $8 an hour, it's like, holy shit, how did you get that gig? But making $8 an hour, and in that hour you might be asked to make 100 burgers. And those 100 burgers are going to earn McDonald's at least $100. Or whatever the hell you're asked to make in an hour is going to earn them at least $100, if not more, probably a whole lot more, as I'm sure we're all aware. Um, so, of that $100 in that hour, you make $8. That is McDonald's. That is your value to McDonald's. That is what they are willing to pay you for your service. What you actually earned, the work that you put into it, what the work that you put into something is what you actually earn from it. You get equally out from what you put into something. You get it back, technically speaking. In a capitalist society, not so much. But, that's the way that a perfect society would run. That's the way that it worked with the cavemen. That's the way when you're farming and when you're subsistent and, when you're doing things, to survive. That's the way it works. What you put into it, you get back out of it. But what you put into McDonald's in this case, in this example, is $100 or more worth of work, and what you get back out of it is $8. You're getting about 8% of the work that you put into it. So how valuable do you feel at that moment in time? How do you feel like your work is appreciated? Do you feel, not only that, but do you feel like you're being paid what you're worth? Do you feel like you're being paid what you deserve to be paid? Do you feel basically like you're getting back what you put into something? Because if you do, then you're just fooling yourself, and it's all psychological. Um, and people do that. They do, in this situation, fool themselves into thinking that they're getting out of something what they put into it, because they create this concept in their head that it's okay to get back less than what they put into it, because that's just the way it works, and that's just what you're going to get back from it. And so if that's what you're going to get back from it, then that becomes the new standard uh, for a decent amount, for getting a decent amount back for what you put into something, psychologically speaking. So when you create that standard, you allow people basically to take advantage of you and to pay you much less than what you're worth and give you much less than what you put into something. And by doing so, you devalue your work, you devalue your body, you devalue your soul, you devalue yourself. You know, you just, you don't allow yourself to be happy, and nobody can truly be happy unless they are working and getting back what they put into the work that they have. It's in human instinct. That's what I've learned. That's what I learned in Sociology 101. It's basic, simple shit, people. Um, it's human instinct to want to work because that's what our ancestors did to be able to survive. And that's what we have to do to survive. And so if we're not doing something, if we're not keeping busy, if we don't have something that we're putting into so that we feel like we're not only contributing but helping to to make a case for our survival, then we can't be happy with the place we are. We can't be satisfied with the place we're at. There's no real satisfaction. There's no real, you know, sense of self-importance. And so I think what's interesting is that even though the 90s were a great period for economic prosperity, during the 90s you see the rise, and partially the 80s, I guess I would say, you see the rise of the importance of self-confidence, and the fact that apparently during the 90s everyone just suddenly lost their self-confidence and just needed to get Ritalin. That's another subject all on its own because it has to do with the politics of healthcare and all that. But the point is, that it did become finally an issue. We did start finally looking at, self-esteem and stuff, and started to realize, wow, a lot of people don't have very good self-esteem. And the reason, I think, is because a lot of people are not paid what they're worth. A lot of people put into something more than what they're getting out. Not just a little bit more, but a lot more. A shitload more. A shit ton more than they're getting back out of it. And whether or not they realize it mentally, psychologically, in their head, they know. You know, whether you realize it or not, that you're not being given what you deserve to be given. You're not getting out what you put in. And, innately, when that happens, it's also natural for us to feel depressed, to feel anxiety, to feel low self-esteem and stuff like that, because it's, it's just a natural feeling that springs from, trying to, survive. I think I said, like a million times during that particular sentence. And I said like. I am a much better writer than I am a speaker. But anyways, when you're not getting out, or when you're not getting back what you put into it, you're not feeling great. I mean, I think there's a reason they called it the Great Depression in the 1930s and whatnot. Because when you're out of work, you're pretty fucking depressed, as anybody who's ever been out of work can tell you. So, honestly, it's offensive what I see on the news sometimes. And that's just the attitude taken by some people that, well, why don't you just go to Walmart and they'll just give you a job on the spot? That's fucking offensive, because even at Walmart, you still have to compete with at least 5 other people for a job. And let me tell you, at Walmart, it's a little bit more complicated than just 5 other people. At a place like Walmart, you're competing with hundreds of other people, if not thousands of other people at this point in this poor of an economy. So, you know, you don't have a chance, basically. You have a very small chance. And, okay, and included into that, how are you under the impression that Walmart is hiring at all times? That's an impression that comes straight from the 90s, when jobs were plentiful and there was no issue with that. And I think it comes from there because these people have had jobs since then. These people who are saying that have been steadily employed for quite some time, and they don't have to worry about looking for a job with very little relevant and pertinent experience, meaning experience that happened recently. Because for the most part, nobody cares if you don't have the recent experience to go along with it, right? So here I am, like many other people, many people I know, and for 3 years now, I've been looking for employment, and I have been unable to find employment. And they would tell me, "You're not looking hard enough." Or, "Well, why don't you just go down to McDonald's?" Or, "Why don't you just go down to Walmart?" Let me tell you a little story of I went to Target several times. I have applied at Target several times over the last 3 years. I have gotten 5 interviews over these past 3 years at Target. At all but one of those interviews, I got the sense that they were very pleased with me, that they really liked me and really were hoping to get to work with me in the near future, I got the sense that they were very much, they were impressed by me, and, that I had basically done well in the interview. So, yeah, okay, so I did well in the interview in 4 out of 5 situations, which is not bad for me because I'm really not the most fantastic interviewer, but, I did pretty damn good in most of those interviews, expecting to get a call back saying, "Hey, come in next week," or "Come in the week after," or something. All I ever got, one time I got a postcard that said, "Sorry, but we can't hire you right now." And the next 4 times I got emails that said, "Sorry, but we can't hire you at this time." And the last time I got that email, it took them about almost a month to actually send the fucking email. And when I went in for those interviews, the last time I did it, I got 2 interviews, and there were tons of people in there waiting for interviews just like me, which tells me, as some of you may be unaware, that they weren't looking to hire anyone at that time. They were just looking to get their people more experience, the people who work for them more experience in the practice of interviewing, so that should they need to find somebody else, they would have people who were very experienced at interviewing and could find the right person. I guess you could say it was sort of a valuable experience for me because I did get to practice my interviewing skills, and I do believe I got a little bit better at that. But at the same time, it's kind of insulting that I'm being used kind of as a puppet for their purposes, under the assumption that I may have an opportunity for employment here, when the truth is far from it. The truth is they aren't looking to hire anyone, and they aren't going to be hiring anyone. I mean, unless you've been there You need to shut the fuck up. And that's my attitude towards these fuckers on the news and these fuckers everywhere else that have a job right now, and they've had a job for a while, and they're looking at you and judging you as unfit because you can't find a job, and clearly it's your own fault. And it's like, fuck you. I mean, the attitude is, if you have a college education and you apply for a job, you should be able to get one. Well, let me tell you what. I have a college education. I have 2 degrees, and I still, for 3 years, have not been able to find employment. And that's 3 years since I got those 2 degrees. So yeah, where's your all high and mighty, oh, if you have the education and the means, then you should be able to. Fuck you. In every imaginable fucking orifice, in every imaginable fucking way, deep down into your soul, fuck you. You don't fucking know what it's like. Unless you live in this country, and you've been where I've been, and you have walked in my shoes, you get to do one thing: shut the fuck up. That's how I'm feeling. And that's why I'm so proud of the people that went out of their way to do these protests, because although I am fully under the impression that it's going to do very little good, I do appreciate the attempt to change things in a way that at least gets the concept out there to anyone with half a fucking brain, to anyone who's intelligent enough to realize that, there's something more going on here than just lazy people who aren't doing enough to find a job, and they don't want a job. If they don't want to get the education so they can get a job, then why are they in college and getting an education while outwardly seeking employment all the time? Why is it that now, more than any other time in the history of this country, people in college are having a harder time than ever finding employment while in college so that they can pay for their tuition with that employment? Why is it now that, for the first time ever, people between the ages of 20 and 30 are finding it, even with an education, damn near impossible to find employment? It has to do with more than just laziness. It has to do with more than just, an unwillingness on their part to look, because they have been looking. Let me fucking tell you, with the crowds I have seen piled up around the fucking corner of buildings, they have been fucking looking, you douchebags. We have been out there hitting the streets for 3 years, and it is insulting, and you deserve a kick in the frickin' crotch if you really believe, honestly, that we're just not doing enough, that we're just lazy, that we are the problem. We aren't the problem. The problem is corporations are holding on to their money, and they don't want to give it up, and they don't want to open new jobs. Of course, that problem also stems from other problems, such as the fact of the housing collapse, which created a gigantic hole in our economy when, the timber industry and all those other things were rather cut short when the housing market just collapsed, basically, for the most part. And then, of course, free trade, which, if you don't understand how free trade sent millions of American jobs overseas and quite literally allowed companies to do so without any repercussion, and seemingly just for a temporary profit, which just blows my mind. If you can't see how the combination of these two things, more than anything else, have led to the economic collapse we find ourselves in, then you really don't understand the history of our economy. You really don't understand what's going on right now. Because free trade, okay, so free trade allowed them to move our jobs willy-nilly so that they could get their, so that these companies could get their work done elsewhere for a cheaper price, for a much lower price than ever before or anywhere else in the United States. Yeah. For a much better price than they can get it done in the United States. So, with that in mind, then you can comprehend how those jobs are never coming back, because prices are not getting lower in the United States. They're getting higher. Prices for work to get the same job done, they're getting higher because minimum wage, as it should be, is getting higher and rising all the time because, well, I mean, minimum wage doesn't even pay you what you're worth. So, of course it should be getting higher. We're striving to be an economy that's, you know, fair and just to all people, and the model of the modern business is to be unfair and unjust to all people. So, there's your problem. Your problem is you got businesses that are never going to bring those jobs back over here because they're getting the job done elsewhere in a satisfactory manner for cheaper than they can get it done here. Which means the factories, all that hard labor that used to exist and created the freaking economy, you know, the freaking, I mean, it's never coming back. We traded our blue-collar economy away, and it's never coming back. We have to create a new economy here, which means that we're headed for quite a few years of issues here. And you're right to say that you need to be looking at getting an education, and you're right to say that you need to be doing something. But you're wrong to suggest that somebody who's been looking for employment for 3 years has not been doing anything. If they're not doing anything, it's because they have lost hope. Rightfully so, because there's none left. Because there are no jobs for them. And there are no opportunities for them. And the only opportunities there are for them are represented by an educational system that forces them to take out student loans, which literally are a modern form of slavery, if you think about it, because they force, most student loans force you to pay, okay, most student loans have a percentage attached to them that keeps increasing over time. So however long you take to pay it off, that percentage of what you owe is going to keep increasing and increasing and increasing. So no matter how much you pay off, you're just going to keep owing more and more and more money. And it's a model designed to keep you owing money for the rest of your life. And that model is shared with slavery, in that with slavery you also have to work and give your life's savings and your work and your blood and your sweat and your tears away to somebody for the right to exist, basically. And that's exactly what you're doing in a technical roundabout way with a student loan to go to college. In my opinion, college, particularly up to the bachelor's degrees, should be a free fucking thing in this country and all around the world. at this point, because we've reached a world economy now where the only way to find employment is to have a fucking bachelor's degree. If you don't have a bachelor's degree, you're fucked. The bachelor's degree is the new high school diploma, and therefore the bachelor's degree should be what we're giving free education up to. Fuck, Bill Gates was saying it, wasn't he? And he was right. He was absolutely fucking right. The numbers don't lie. Particularly here in Portland, there's an example that I can think of that's pretty important for what I'm trying to say here. 15 years ago, 17% of working age adults, I believe over the age of like 25 or something like that, in the Portland area had a bachelor's degree. 17%. Today, greater than 50%. More than half. And that is because you need it just to have a hope of getting a job, of finding employment and surviving. You know, we adapt. People, Americans, everybody adapts to do what they have to be able to survive. So don't just fucking spread your bullshit about laziness and all that. We're in the process of adapting to a shitty economy that you apparently know nothing about because you haven't experienced it firsthand, so you need to shut the fuck up. And we'll get down to business, and we'll do the shit that you couldn't even fucking dream of doing right now. Because, well, you have a job, which means if you have a job, even if you lose it, chances are you can get another job fairly soon because you have recent experience. So you have a step up against everybody else who's been looking for 3 years. You don't know what it's like to be in our shoes, and you probably never fucking will. So yeah, those are my thoughts on the whole process. I guess I want to close this out by saying that the whole Occupy Wall Street thing, the reason I don't believe it's going to be effective is because it's not really reaching the right people. If you look at the early videos, they show that people on Wall Street are just looking down on the mindless, at what they see as the mindless peons, and laughing and drinking champagne. They don't fucking care. They don't fucking care. They're the ones with the power, and they don't fucking care. You need to be getting to the people with the power and convincing them that what they're doing is wrong, and they don't fucking care. I hesitate to say we're fucked because I don't believe in giving up at any point. But I think it's important that to take a logical process, to take logical steps to create change. And while this is way more logical than other things we could be doing, I think what we need to be focusing on is possibly gathering some money together so that, you know, we will have a pool of money so that we'll be able to pay to have our voices heard, because at this point, that's the only way to get it done. I had a dream the other day, alright? Like a daydream, I guess I would call it, where somebody won the lottery and then they took that money and spread it out amongst 200 people who then used that money to pay their way in to a fundraising dinner for some political dignitary, like maybe like Obama, for a fundraising dinner for Obama or something. And by doing that, they were able to make their voices heard in similar ways that big corporations have their voices heard over ours, because, you know, it's always the person who pays into the political situation that has their voices heard. Our voices are not heard because we don't have the money to have our voices heard. That's kind of the way it works right now. as sad and stupid and pathetic as it is, and as much as that shouldn't be the way it works right now, that is the way it works right now. So in order to effectually show people, in order to effectually show the political system and the political elite how fucked up our system is right now, we have to work within the system to show them just how fucked up it is. By working within the system, you basically show them how fucked up it is, because it's fucked up to have to pay to have your voices heard in this country. It is. And I think that if you had 200 people coming to a dinner like that to protest, that you would send a message to that political dignitary, whoever he would fucking be. And I think that's the way we need to move forward from this. That, riots or protests, it's all good, but we need to take more logical steps from here on out. And I think we're starting to do that, but, it needs to be even more logical than that. Read some Henry David Thoreau, read on civil disobedience, read Martin Luther King Jr.'s A Letter from Birmingham Jail. I mean, to political people, words on a piece of paper might not be as important anymore as it used to be. But eventually we're going to come to the point where we actually have the opportunity to speak to these people face to face in a way that they will not be able to ignore. And I foresee that day coming up soon. Maybe not very soon, but hopefully within the next 10 or 20 years. And when that happens, history will be made, and, the political system will see, the political elite will see how fucked up the system is and how it needs to change, and how we can work within the system as we would have to in order to get to that point, to make the system better over time. And that's the only way it's going to work. That's the way that our country was created. That's the values that we were founded upon. So yeah, with that in mind, peace. Catch you later.